Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Pickleball Hosted Housing, and today's guest is Addam Shand. And
Hello.
tell everybody where you're located.
I live in Naples, Florida, the capital of the world for pickleball.
And so we're going to be talking today about children and involving children in pickleball. And so we know that pickleball has a reputation of being for older people, and of course, in that age segment has just expanded astronomically. But why should children be playing pickleball? Why is that potential? Why is that an interesting concept?
Well, it's a great question. Everyone here, so the first time they hear pickleball, they think of their grandparents, their parents, and they never think about the youth. It's really important for children to get involved in pickleball because we don't want to be like racquetball. We don't want to be a sport that was a fad and then grows out and then in a matter of 20 years it's gone. But more importantly, it's a great learning tool for kids, one, to make friends, two, to have success at a young age and enjoy what they're doing. Because right away, you can have little steps of success when you're teaching a child how to play pickleball, from bouncing a ball on a paddle to learning about different rules and understanding it. Kids want to play and they want to get better. They just don't have the opportunity yet. And that's where we come in.
Yeah. So I know that I had the great fortune to teach 3 one-week classes to children. It was a summer camp. And I was really delighted with how fast they learned it and how much they enjoyed it. Tell me about your early experiences working with kids. What were some of the successes?
Sure.
And also, what are some of the challenges?
Sure. So if I could take a step back and explain how this all came about, it will make sense to answer this question.
Yeah.
So basically what happened is that during COVID, right when it started, I was living up in Rhode Island with my family and we decided to move. I moved to Naples into this beautiful community that had 4 pickleball courts, and I would drive by it every single day and I never saw a single child. And my community has about 600 homes and 400 children under the age of 12, which is really unique and really interesting. So my background is in children, youth sports. I run a summer camp for children. I also work with kids during different college and alumni weekends for my other business. And it drove me nuts not being able to see kids play. And it was, the courts were barely ever used, only in the mornings from 9 to 11 and on certain mornings. And so I put an email out to the community and said, hey, I'm going to offer a free pickleball clinic to anyone under the age of 12 years old, under the age of 15 years old. And I got some local friends, Ryan Reeder down at East Naples, he's the head pro down there, Zach Higginson, who's a local pro. And with one email, I got 50 children to sign up. And I said, oh my God, this is crazy. There's obviously an interest, but there's nowhere for these kids to play. And so it just drove me.
50 people on your very first clinic. This is really
very first email. I didn't even market it. It was just one email.
Okay, but where did you disseminate the email? Who did you send that
just
to?
in my community.
Just in your group of homeowners.
That's it. There's always 600 homes. I would say full-time residents, 400 homes, because I live in Naples. It's a lot of tourists come in and go. And just within that neighborhood that I live in, there was 50 people who wanted to participate, 50 children. And I said to myself, well, my summer camp at the time was not operating because of COVID. My other business, Legacy Childcare, is not operating because of COVID. So what am I going to do with myself? I was bored. And I said, this is an avenue that is an opportunity. And more so, I have 2 children, 2 girls, one of which is very athletic, who's 7, and another one who's athletic, but more academic based, which is great. But she sometimes struggles making friends. And I said, okay, well, this could be a great opportunity. It's a sport which it's not very a physical sport, but it's still challenging. And at the same time, it lends an opportunity for a social aspect. That's why I fell in love with it. And I saw just in that first clinic, the interactions between the children, who 90% of them have never even touched a paddle. I saw them speaking to each other, learning about each other. even not about pickleball, just about, where do you go to school? Why are you down here? Where do you live? Those types of things. And it was an instant connection for me to say, okay, I can now have my daughter make friends in a sport that she normally would not have the opportunity to do so, because a lot of the kids that come out don't play that football, basketball, those types of sports that I grew up with. Yet. I'm going to say yet, because they will come. It's just a matter of getting the excitement going. It's more, a lot of the homeschool kids or the kids who haven't had that opportunity for mainstream sports. This gives them that opportunity. And so we came out, we had a great time. And I said, you know what? That was a lot of fun. The kids had a great time. And then parents kept saying to me, what do I do next? And I said, I don't know. Right. And so I decided to incorporate, which took a lot longer than normal. I made a corporation called My Pickleball League down here in Naples, and I incorporated in Florida, and I went for it. And so I decided that, I looked around specifically for my daughter before incorporating, thinking to myself, where can I put my kids in that's not a one-on-one with a coach? Those are great, but it defeats the purpose of what I was trying to accomplish. And that's that social interaction as well. And so I looked around and there's nothing. There was nothing at the time. And so I said, okay, this is the only sport I've been a part of that doesn't have structured practices for kids. It doesn't have opportunities for kids to play against other kids their age versus playing against an adult, which no kid wants to do, right? It's just not fun for them. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. Let's go for it. So after getting incorporated, I put together an 11-week program, which I would suggest not doing going forward because it was a little long. I just based it on the school calendar. And once a week we had practices. And at the end of this 11 weeks, we had a tournament. And everyone said I'm crazy to run a tournament with kids who don't know how to play pickleball. Right? And I said, they're going to learn and they're going to have fun. And so thankfully, we were able to get about 30 kids that first season to make that commitment, and there's a financial commitment to that. And in doing so, I thought from a parent's perspective, what do I need? What do I physically need for a kid to play? They need a paddle, and they need quality instructors. Right? And we have courts. So I teamed up with Selkirk Paddles. Rob Barnes, great guy. And he sent over 50 paddles for us to play with. I bought those, made a deal with him. And then I teamed up with Penn Pickleball, Christine Barksdale. And I wanted to legitimize us. And by getting these two partners, it was an opportunity for us to say, we're real, we're legitimate. We're gonna take this, head on, not just, oh, here's a ball, let's go hit it. There's nothing that bothers me more as a parent and as a youth advocate than paying for something and learning nothing, right? That just drives me crazy, right? So I wanted to make it happen. So Christine Barksdale sent us balls. She sent us hoppers. She sent everything we can imagine outside of the paddles, and we took it from there. And then I said, okay, I got to get some great coaches. So I hired a good friend of mine, Tony Philangelis, who runs Mediterra. It's a very exclusive private club here in Naples. He's the director of athletics there. He's also a professional pickleball player. And Jimmy Hicks, who is a local legend out here. He's a bit older, but he has the experience that I wanted to make sure that we knew that the kids can understand that you can play at all levels and you can play with your grandparents if you like. And so we started, to answer your question, sorry, I've been rambling a little bit there. The challenge is educating the parents. Right? A lot of parents don't understand that this is available for kids and that it's a sport. They think it's just fun.
I think it's not available. So I think that, and I think you have enough adults and parents who play. We've got grandkids, we've got kids, who could do it that way. But I think what we're missing in our society is what you're doing, which is the organized structure and ways to make it happen, the place to make it happen, the right people to make it happen. And so during this interview, what I keep thinking in the back of my mind is, how do we take what you're doing and translate it so that it's happening in Idaho, so that it's happening in Hawaii, so that it's...
Yeah, I got the answer for you. And so very soon we are going to be launching a new company where it's going to be basically a national internet. It's going to start nationally, where we're going to have an overline message to encompass all of youth pickleball. Because right now there's a huge push for youth pickleball, and lots of great people are trying to make it happen, but there's no direction, and that's the problem. So we are finalizing some steps on that, and when that happens, you're going to see an explosion of youth coming to the sport. You know, in Utah, a good friend of mine out there has 200 kids in her network. Another person in Utah has another 300 kids. There's 500 kids in Utah alone that are playing pickleball. Right. And I got a friend up in Rhode Island that's starting something just recently. It's her first summer, and she's doing, I think she's got 50 kids lined up. Another one in New York, another one in California. And so all these things are great. But for me, what I see as a problem growing up, my background is in sports. I own an international sports summer camp. I played college sports. The problem is that there's no set of instructions on how to do this, right? There's no uniform way to say, okay, if I'm part of this organization, I know I'm going to get X, Y, and Z. If I don't get those things, it's a waste of time. Because if you're doing something where you are and I'm doing something where I am, we might have two totally different teaching styles, which is fine, but there's no consistency for kids when they travel.
Right.
And that's a problem for me.
Yeah. So if I look at you and your background, and so you're really inundated in the whole sports world and your connections, and then you make this happen. So with myself, I love the idea of youth pickleball, and I did work on starting it, but there are so many factors that are just difficult for me because my background is not like yours. So, for example, I need to get the place, I need to have the facility, and so we have our clubs using the different courts the times a day, and then having the right coaches and the right leadership, and and then the pay structure, if there's a pay structure or a fee involved, and then of course your connections having companies like Selkirk. I mean, that is lovely. And Penn, are they interested in youth sports? And it sounds like they definitely are.
Yeah, it's so as the sport is growing, and as you'll see from beginners, from adults, children, all the way up to the pros, you're going to start seeing an explosion of things happening, just like what just came out with the gambling at the pro level. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This is about to go crazy. And when I say that, that's a great thing. Not the gambling part per se, but just in general, the things going up. Because what's going to happen is once this gets a little bit more exposure, pickleball in general, they're going to have more sponsorships that want to be part of this, and more money gets involved. This can be a good thing, and this can be a bad thing, depending on how people react to it. For the youth level, with more money means more opportunity. That's why I'm so excited about it. At the pro level, more money can mean better payouts, but then the agents get involved and these other things happen and everything becomes more complicated. Yeah. Right? So, and from just a recreational player, which I would say 95% of us are, just recreational, have fun, go to some tournaments here and there. Well, the more people that get involved, the more competition, the better it's going to get, the more opportunities. And, now I never dreamed of doing this, but now when I go anywhere, I bring my paddle. I think it's insane. Like I bring my paddle, I bring a ball. I bring it. I'm driving up to my sister in Virginia, and I'm going to meet up with Gizmo. I don't know if you know who that is. I saw him at a tournament. He said, "Come to my farm." He lives a half hour from my sister. It's 5 months ago. I thought I'd be crazy to be doing these things, right? And now you're making all these friends, just like my daughter. I'm making friends as well. And that's what's so cool about this sport, that you can go from not knowing a thing, just like every kid that starts the game, to being good enough to participate with a pro like him. And so it's really, really exciting.
Yeah. Which is wonderful because you're right. It's bringing, so back to kids, it brings that ability to be athletic and to be moving, because it is accessible, and yet when you are a more advanced athlete, you have the ability to add the nuance in the competition and,
Sure.
It's the
Sure.
whatever you want. But yeah, I mean, oh my goodness.
Good.
Like I wouldn't be talking to you here today if it wasn't for pickleball. And I have
Sure.
1,000 more examples. It's just amazingly so social.
It's unbelievable. And, just from my personal experience playing pickleball, when I started, I was playing tennis, which were right next to the pickleball courts. And some of I walked over there and I said, what is this? What is this all about? Right. And the people that were there, they were great to me. They said, come on in, come check this out. Here, try this paddle, do this. So I went 2 or 3 times and I was hooked. I find this sport, and this is, I don't know if everyone's going to agree with this, but I played lots of sports. I find this to be the best workout of any of the sports I've ever played. And within 5 minutes, if you play singles too, it's even harder. But within 5 minutes, I'm tired. Like I'm sweating. I'm working out. Compared to basketball, you get some breathers here and there, right? When I'm playing pickleball, it's like play to 11. Let's go. We're not stopping. And my heart is racing and it's great. I love it. And so that excitement I'm bringing to the kids. But if we bring it back to the kids just for a second here. So we have this program and we have a structured format. So after these 11 weeks, the kids knew what a dink was. They knew what a drop shot was. The older kids, I have a few middle school, high school kids, about 8 of them. They knew what an ernie was. We tried an ATP one day. We tried to do other things to make it exciting for them. The real issue for these kids are they all want to learn, but they don't know where to go or what these things are. So when you say what's an ATP, no one has any clue. But when they try it, they're like, "Whoa, this is the coolest thing," and they can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
From a coaching perspective, though, there's not a lot of drills for kids, right?
Yeah.
So you can adapt drills and make them for children, but there's not a lot of fun drills for them. So one of the kids, one of the coaches that helps us, we have 2 juniors that help us, Alec and Morgan. They're local here and they go all over the country. They're in middle school. And they come up with a couple of drills here and there. And, I learned something new just yesterday about a game that we were playing. And so it keeps it fresh. But we also have to consider, I work with kids as young as 6 years old. So they're not going to be able to hit a serve. You got to get them in a little bit. You got to make lines. You got to do things to help these kids be successful. But you also have to make it fun. And that's something that a lot of coaches don't realize. If it's not fun, they're not going to want to come back. And so from my first season to my summer season, I had about a 90% return rate. So
exactly. That's teaching, and so you need to be aware of your audience and keeping them engaged. And I think I did little things when I did my summer camp, like we would just have our paddle, and I said, okay, we want to try and get to 20 bounces, try and get this to, and the little things like that are really the skills that eventually will lead to.
Sure.
So definitely ways to make it fun and to make it engaging.
Sure.
So as far as a curriculum, is there at some point do you think you're going to make that available?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple different curriculums. Reiner over at I don't know if you know who Reiner is, but he owns Pictona, and his background is in education, creating textbooks and whatnot, and he created a very good one for the school systems, which I think it has been rolled out at this point for next school year. And there's a curriculum in there which is really good, but it's focused on schools, right? And so it's a little bit more based. That's correct. Yeah. So he's trying to roll it out nationwide, which is great. And he and his wife they're doing. Have you heard of Pictona or no?
No.
It's in Daytona Beach. There's a pickleball. They created this big pickleball center. And I met him at the U.S. Open actually here in Naples, and we just started talking, and one thing led to another, and we met twice in 1 week at a time, and we hit it off. And we just, his wife won gold. It was really fun. And long story short, he told me about what he did and what he's doing, and he was able to share that information with me. And it's great. It's a great starting point. But it's more geared towards younger kids, and they're going to create a second curriculum for an older session. But it's more about we need to focus on things that kids want to learn, right? You can always incorporate the fundamentals, and that's always the most important thing. However, you can do that in ways that are not traditional when you as an adult go out to an activity. I should share this one really funny story to you. So when I first got into this, my mom and dad, they also moved down a similar time that we did. They live right here in Naples as well. And my mom's like, hey, let me buy you a lesson. Like, sure. This is before the kids thing, the whole thing. I was like, I played one time with my people in my community, and let me just try it. Sure. So little did I know, she says, all right, go to Fort Myers, and there's this guy there that'll help you out. And I'm like, okay. So we go there, she pays the whole thing, we do the thing, I show up, and his name's Kyle Yates. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk out, no idea who this guy is, right? No clue. Yeah. So the nicest guy in the world. We just started chatting it up, and then we go out to the courts, and then I realize I'm in a lot of trouble because this court says home of world champion Kyle Yates. I'm like, that's you? He's like, yeah. I go, okay, we need to take a step here. I've never really played before. We did an hour of just thinking, and I thought my back was going to fall off. It was so on fire. It was like unbelievable. And the coolest part, though, wasn't the lesson. It was the knowledge he was telling me and just speaking to me as if we were just buddies from a long time ago. And that's what struck a chord with me, because now I can call on him and say, hey, Kyle, I have a question. He's one of the best in the world, and that would never happen in another sport. Never. Yeah. Right. And so that's what's so intriguing. Or Catherine and Athena, they live down the road. Simone lives down the road from me. Right. I have a great relationship with Athena. And so it's one of those things where it's like, they don't know who I am, and they're just welcoming me as if I was one of them. And that happens all the time in this sport. And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so
that's so funny. That is so funny. And how nice of your mother. Like, she just went to the top.
I don't think she knew, honestly. I think she just Googled.
Okay, we'll go with this Kyle guy.
Yeah, I think she just Googled it, and she's and then when I got home and told her, she couldn't believe it. It's one of those things, So
yeah. I think it's for its infancy too, and I think there's a lot of accessibility to, our top players on, it's interesting to see how that's going to evolve and how that.
And there's something else too that's really interesting as well. So the PPA, I've spoken to Connor, the founder of the PPA there, as well as Lori, who actually runs the Utah branch, but runs the junior portion of the PPA. And what's really cool is that they're trying as well to make this happen for juniors. The unfortunate part of this, though, is that juniors are not getting respected yet, because there's no money in juniors for sponsorships, right? For the adults, for the tournaments. And so some of their events don't even get counted. I love the U.S. Open. I love everything about it. I had a great experience there. One of my kids in my league played in the U.S. Open. She was actually the youngest player ever in the U.S. Open, even though they didn't recognize that. But that being said, they didn't even, it was just interesting to me that it was like they weren't even there. They were putting the court way to the side, and all the juniors. And
I read about that. Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. What?
It didn't count, like you said.
Yeah, it didn't count for anything. So
count towards the rating. Is that correct?
That's great. And so what's the point?
Yeah.
So what's the whole rating system too, coming from a non-tennis background. I did play recreation, but not like. It's so confusing to all the parents I speak to. I just tell them, don't even worry about it. Just go and play and have fun, and come to our tournaments, and you're not going to get rated, but we're going to put you against other kids who are similar in ability.
Yeah. And I think that, so if you've got Selkirk donating so many things and Penn donating so many things, eventually the money and the sponsorships will get there. It seems like maybe we're seeing some little threads with what you're doing. So what do you see is going to happen with the youth pickleball? And also, what's your recommendations? We'll go ahead and kind of end with this. Okay. What's your recommendations? There's people who who are like me, who love youth pickleball, who would love to have it. So going forward, what would
Okay.
it be with you? What would we do? And
Sure. So my recommendation, because let me preface this by saying nobody likes change. Change is very difficult for a lot of people. And I say that because when youth get involved, they're taking time or space that normally other people who are playing are taking their time. So, for example, if you have a certain time frame that you're always there, and now youth are coming, well, they need space
yeah,
too. So change is difficult, right? And so when you're entering into this market of youth, you have to be very careful as to when and where you're going to have your activities, right? So I purposely, and I would highly recommend, I did after school, right? Today, for example, I have classes from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. None of the older generation play during that time, right? And that's intentional because I want to take the time of the courts that are not being used so these kids don't feel pressured, with people just staring at them all the time. It can be intimidating, right? So we want to make sure that they're in a safe, controlled environment, that there's no one going to bother them and say, well, I get the court in 20 minutes. Well, no, let's just relax about that, right? That's number one. Number two, I would definitely reach out to as many organizations, youth organizations as possible, and explain why pickleball is important and how you can team up. I've learned that a lot of people realize that everybody wants the whole pie. And the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of slices in this pie that everyone needs to take part in, right? For it to be successful. And so if you want it to be successful, you're going to have to give up portions of things that you want. For example, if you team up with a youth organization that already has a couple hundred kids in it, and now another extension is pickleball, well, they're not going to do it for free. I mean, they worked hard for those clients, so you have to figure out how you can incorporate yourself with those organizations to make it a success, right? And so that everybody wins, not just you, right? And that's really hard for some people because it's their baby and they really want to make it grow. But to make it grow faster, you have to do these things.
That makes sense. Now, are you going to be involved in a company? And it sounds like this is where you're heading. That there will be a national company that people can buy into. So we do have uniformity and we have expectations, operational standards, et cetera.
Exactly. So I'm not allowed to say the name just yet, but it's going to be a very recognizable name and it's very explicit of what exactly we are. I signed some papers on it, sorry. But what we can do is be very, within the next month and a half, this will be launched. Sorry?
That's exciting.
Yeah. So let's say 2 months to be safe. Right? And what's going to happen is that it's going to be governing basically youth pickleball in the United States. Yeah. And when I say governing, it's kind of like when you think of like soccer, there's U.S. youth soccer, or other sports, and I just warn many families, many coaches, many parents, many kids, be very careful with who you sign up with. And the reason why is because right now with an explosion of growth, there's a thing I call money grabs. Right. And there's a ton of them out there right now for pickleball where people are like, I can coach you. I got certified, 10 years ago, or I know what I'm doing. Let me just coach you this. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your kids' time. It's a waste of your money because you're going to get nothing out of that than babysitting. Right?
You really want a holistic thing. So, if you want your kids to be involved in the community, it needs to be a community. And,
exactly.
Right. So where you have other kids, where you get to, potentially attend a tournament, where you're learning ongoing training. So, just getting a couple lessons doesn't really do it because you need the whole package, right?
Yeah, and not to put down any organization because anyone working with youth is a positive in my book. However, there are a governing body right now that just doesn't support us as a youth corporate. So it just doesn't support. They have their own thing, and if you're not part of it, take care. I reached out to them 3 times, and I got the take care, buddy. Good luck. And I said, I'm trying to help your company. Well, why are you not, helping me? Well, pay me this much money and then I can give you some stuff. Hold on. That's not what I'm talking about here. Right. And so it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And every youth organization that has significant numbers of people that I spoke to has said the exact same thing as what they said to me. And so that's why this is happening. And that's why there's going to be a change of the guards very soon for youth. Because it's just not right. It's just not helping your own sport. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm just really excited. The thought of having tournaments for kids and just their self-confidence, their health, their social health. And there's just so much great potential. I mean, we love it. Like, we're crazy about pickleball, and kids, let's let them in on the secret.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if there's anyone out there that wants to reach out to me about youth pickleball in general, about anything is small, no questions too small, I am all ears. I'm always happy to speak to people about pickleball, about youth pickleball, because it's just one of those things that it's going to happen. It just has to be the right way. And if it's not the right way, it's just going to fall on its face.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. You're going to be such a valuable resource to so many people. So can they get a hold of you? We have our Facebook, but is there, how do you put the, I can put it up here on the screen.
So it's my first name, but I spell it differently. It's ADDAM.
Right.
At mypbleague.com. That's the best way to get me because I'm always on my email. And if I'm not answering, I'm probably coaching and or having, playing for that matter. But the more people that get involved in this, I can't say this enough, the better it's going to be for all of kids and the sport in itself as it grows. I mean, look at Leo Chun. Look at there's so many. I mean, Leo's dad's a great advocate for the sport. Wyatt Stone, his mom is unbelievably involved in what's going on, and I give them so much credit. And so it's just a great way the more parents that get involved, my PB, there's a B in there.
My PB, oh, it is PB. Did I have it right the first time?
Yeah, pickleball, PB, yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's right there. Okay, there it is. Right. Okay, I had it.
So it's just, So
you're getting other pro players or youth pro players, and then their families involved. I'm sorry.
So I probably know there's a small group of, let's say, about 15 players that go to a lot of the tournaments together. They're either homeschooled or they have really great parents that are willing to travel all over the country for them. Yes. Sharon Brown, she runs a local Veterans Memorial Club here in Naples. Her daughter Morgan helps us coach sometime. She's one of them. It's just, there's so many great youth players. And I just also want to be clear about one thing. We keep mentioning, and this is something very important to me, all of the great athletes, the great players, but there's also kids who just want to play. Right? And that is just as important in pickleball as the kids that are winning all the medals. At my league, especially at the younger levels, everybody receives a medal at the end. Everybody. And I know that's against, a lot of the rules and whatnot, but they're kids. It's something to hang on the wall. It's something for the kid to remember. Exactly.
What did you say? You said that 90% of your kids came back.
Exactly.
So that's our point. We want to keep them involved.
Exactly.
It would be interesting. I wonder, do you know if there would be any of your youth athletes who we could bring on here, just so we could hear from them about how they feel about pickleball? I think that might be a really good influence or motivator to have parents get their own kids involved, or kids wanting to do it on
we can set that up for sure. That's no problem at all. It'd be great if we had the parent and the child, just for legality reasons, just to make sure that everything's good. But that's another thing. If you're starting a league, make sure you have the proper insurance, because it's different with kids than it is with adults.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
That sounds good. I really appreciate your time and what you're doing, and feel free to share this broadcast, wherever
I will.
you out, and I'll be doing the same. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And again, if anyone has any questions, I'm here, and I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.